I'm Beck Bamberger. This is our first episode, just so everyone knows, but this is not my first time recording a podcast, thank God. Steve, thank you for being here. Are we going to play some guitars?
We could, but
Okay.
there's a certain somebody upstairs that doesn't usually appreciate that.
Oh, okay. Then we're no guitars for today. No guitars for today. Okay, earlier you did have a mug. Is it filled with coffee, actually? Are you still drinking coffee in the afternoon?
Is.
Wow. Okay, it's 3:09 PT, and you're still do. Okay. This is why I'm going to like this show a lot, because even at like 7 p.m., I'm sure there's going to be some fatter who's like, yep, on my 7th cup. Do you drink a lot of coffee?
I do drink a lot of coffee, but usually not late into the day. This is actually tea. So.
Oh, okay. Do you cut yourself off from tea, coffee, or whatever at some point? Or
I do. Apparently, caffeine is not good for you after a certain time. So.
Yeah, apparently, we'll kind of see. Okay, Steve. As we wish to discuss on the show about storytelling and startups, can you tell us what AiFi does in perhaps 1 minute or less?
Sure. Very simply put, AiFi is a spatial intelligence company, which is to say we track people and objects through space. And the interesting thing about that is the first product market fit we found was simply people don't like to wait in line.
No.
And so we were able to utilize our platform to effectively generate a receipt in a retail setting so that you can tap a card, walk in, do your shopping. When you're done, simply leave.
Mm-hmm.
And that's gone quite well. The good news is that's not the only thing we can do, but it really is something that I think most shoppers find really quite novel and quite helpful in their day. So.
And delightful. I would say delightful, because you're removing that pain of the line, of the interaction. Okay, before we get into more of the existential questions, which I know you're a fan of, the self-checkout, what's your take on that? People don't like that? People don't want that?
You know, it took 20 years to get to, and now people are starting to take it out of the stores.
Yes,
because
they are.
It doesn't really help with a certain issue called shrink.
Yes.
We feel like the problem with self-checkout is you are being asked to be a member of that company without the benefit of a check. So you are being asked to be the cashier in that setting.
Mm-hmm.
And look, that's still friction. The reality is when somebody sees a line, they don't want to go shop.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's a self-checkout line or otherwise, it's still a line. So
Mm-hmm.
what we're trying to do is just get rid of the line completely. You can spend as much time in the store finding what you want, doing what's important to you. And when you're done, you simply leave, and you don't have to wait on anybody else who's brought in 20 years of coupons and needs to be ahead of you. You've got your time back.
Mm-hmm. And for those who don't know, what is shrinkage?
Shrink is anything from theft to broken items to stuff that never showed up in the first place but was allegedly on the invoice. It's the difference between what you actually have on hand and what you think you have on hand.
Mm-hmm. And shrinkage has been a big problem of late in a lot of retail places, which is why another point of friction. You're seeing the places, and it's in New York and it's in SF, where you walk into the CVS and everything's behind. If you want to buy a razor, everything's behind a plastic thing that you got to call, hit a button to get somebody. Nobody wants that.
No, nobody wants that.
Mm.
That's friction. Hence, we are frictionless.
Yes. What is the long tail eventual of this? You walk around with your phone and you never have to be checking out ever again?
Well, you don't need your phone. You just simply walk around the store, put the items in the basket or in your bin, and when you're done, you simply leave, like I say. So it doesn't necessarily have to involve a phone at all. Typically, our clients prefer that Beck just taps a credit card at a reader, not unlike if you're getting to London Underground or you're trying to go, trying to think of where else there are turnstiles where you have to kind of pay to get through. But the point is, it's super simple. And that's the whole goal. It's meant to be frictionless shopping.
Yes.
So where does this go? It goes throughout all of retail. So retail is something in the neighborhood of a $23 to $30 trillion global market.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's not in, say, high-end luxury places like Tiffany's, but basically anywhere else where you want to be sort of able to go do your thing, shop quickly and get out of there. Or maybe you just want to be able to interact with the salesperson, but when you're done, again, leave. These are all the places we could go. And so currently we're in everything from concession stands in stadiums to grocery stores to apparel stores and kind of everything in between.
Mm-hmm. And funding to date's like 87 million or so.
A little north of that, yeah.
A little north of that.
A little north of 100, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
But here's a
Raise some
fun
money,
fact,
Steve.
Beck.
Yeah, what's up?
One of our big competitors is Amazon.
Yeah.
Amazon has spent north of $5 billion
Yes, they
to
have.
get basically the same number of locations that we have, and we've only raised about 100 million.
Look at that
So
capital story.
isn't that great?
Doesn't that just like get you up in the morning? Does it? Okay, so that's one of the questions. Like, what is getting you up in the morning? It's been a while that you've been building this company. You've raised a lot of money. Okay. What is getting you up in the morning?
One of the things you sort of sent as a potential question is, so give us your background. I have a very odd background. I started
You were an
I've,
Energizer, Procter and
well, even
Gamble.
before that, I have a degree in geology. I went
Yes.
to nonprofit. Then had a life decision
You
to
were
go back to
Facebook.
grad school.
Yeah.
Went to sell bar soap and cosmetics at P&G, then to batteries, then to video games, then to social media, then selling robots, and now I'm in AI.
Yeah, there you go.
So the question then is, well, what the heck? How did you get through all of that? And the sort of the through line there is actually something that they suggest at P&G, that you should gear your career trajectory towards trying to be a general manager. And at P&G, that meant leading a business, and P&G has big businesses. So you can imagine
yeah.
it's billion-dollar brands. Those would be big businesses. So
yes.
I took that to heart and said, well, what kind of experiences and sort of training would I need in order to be effective as a general manager? So that's actually the through line. And so back to your question, what gets me up in the morning? Well, it's the ability to lead this organization, taking all of those things that I've learned from these different locations and different jobs and putting it all together to try to find a way forward.
And when you tell that to VCs, do they go, what's their response to this? Or do they even care about what gets you up in the morning?
I think they do. I think you've got kind of two kinds of CEOs in the venture-backed world. You've got real operators like me, and then more so true founders. And the founders may not have anything like that as a background. And so I do think it's got its value in that, look, I've seen the stuff that works. I know the stuff that you want to model after, and I know the stuff that doesn't work and what you don't want to model after. And so that can be very helpful. And I think a lot of venture capitalists respect that and will seek it out.
Do you think, by the way, and I have, like, obviously we're going to be doing a lot of these, so I'm going to be asking people this, is there less of an interest now from VCs to have the 20-year-old, literally 20 years old or 21 years old, who like just dropped out, of the school and like has this raging idea, but is ballistic, like just ballistic. The energy is for days. And I'm thinking of a few right now as I think about it, versus, oh, wow, seasoned, has had life, is an operator, knows their stuff. Do you think that has changed? Because I would say 10 plus years ago and so forth, it was more like, yeah, we want the college dropout who's just a raging, bull in a china shop. Like, they're just going to figure it out. They're going to figure it out, right? They're just smart. I think there's a swing of the pendulum a lot more to like, no, I want to see gray hair, and have you been through things, and have you operated entities?
Well, I think it depends a little bit what stage you're at. If you're literally brand new, you probably want that college dropout because they have nothing else to do. They've got a lot of energy. They've got no other responsibilities in life. And so they can weather a lot of storm, if you will.
Yep.
The seasoned operator is a seasoned operator because they've got life experience and they've got, they can command a certain probably pay range. And so maybe you don't want to start with that person because maybe that structure and discipline actually isn't what you want early on. So 0 to 1 is very different than 1 to 100.
Very true.
Right. And this
some people really know it now. Yes, some people really know they love 0 to 1, or they cannot stand. One of my founder friends right now is in 0 to 1. He's having the worst time because he's like, I am not this person. He's great with 400 people, 400 to 1,000 people. Like, that's his space. So,
I think the VCs will have to ask themselves, where is this company? How do I get the most out of a crew that's young and what have you, but they've got the energy to figure stuff out and not get paid a whole lot. They can get equity instead of cash. Whereas as you mature, you don't want that anymore. You certainly want to have the equity there, but you recognize what that level of talent brings, and the structure, like I say, and the discipline that brings, and the ability to then really go drive the commercial side of the business. I think there's always a point at which the venture capitalists are like, okay, it's time to bring in, the adult supervision. I think you saw that with Mark Zuckerberg and
Oh
Cheryl,
yes, Cheryl. Yeah,
right?
exactly.
As a perfect example of that.
Yes. I'm curious to see how that would evolve, and in like either co-founder matches or people that go through Y Combinator and whatnot. Like, do you start off with like, okay, crazy psycho out at 20. Here's someone with 47 has been through the trenches. Like the two of you are going to do it from day one. It's 0 to 100. The both of you got to figure that out. I haven't seen those teams before start out like that, because you usually have to build something to the one and before you get the seasoned. But interesting to see, perhaps. What recently became clear for you, Steve, that you wish to admit, of course?
That's a great question. I think recent being a relative word for somebody who's been around a while. I used to think that once you got towards the top of the organization, life would just be a lot easier. And the answer is it's not easier. It's just a different set of problems.
Yes.
And so just having that perspective now, I think, has helped clarify some misconceptions I may have had as a young
Did you really think that, though, like, oh, if I got to here, this tier, this level, I manage 70 people, 7 people, whatever, then I'm going to be on a cakewalk? Did you actually think that?
I wouldn't say cakewalk, but you're thinking, oh, well, their job's way easier. They don't have anyone looking over them going, and the reality is it's just an entirely different set of problems, but they're problems nonetheless. And so things don't get easier. In fact, in a lot of ways, they get harder. And so, like, just remember that even though you think the grass is greener, maybe it is what it is. Like, I think that's been a funny sort of learning that I've had. Not so much that it was like clarity all of a sudden. It's just, looking back.
There's something, and I don't have the quote off the top of my head, but just on like, just make sure you love the problems you're working on, because there will always be problems. There will always be problems, and they evolve. Yes. But can you love the problems? Because they never evaporate if you're doing it right, I would say, if you're doing it right.
Well, and make sure you're in an atmosphere that you're looking for. You can ask a lot of people, would you ever want to be CEO? And a lot of people say, no, I don't want to be CEO. My dear God, why would I want to do that? And so it takes a certain type of person for every role, I suppose, and just make certain that that's what you want. Now, you and I, at the head of an organization, have to deal with a lot of just random stuff.
Oh, all the time.
And we were laughing earlier, everything from Silicon Valley Bank failing. I mean, you can't foresee that. It's a top 20 bank in the world, for gosh sakes. Like, how would you
That was a fun Black Swan event. Yes, we enjoyed.
But then I had a car drive through the front of our office.
Yes, you did. I remember that.
And I'm like, how do you can't prepare for that? No. Like, that's so random. And so you think of like everything in between. Like, so if you're not sort of prepared for that, at least in a startup, and I suspect even Tim Cook has to deal with a lot of random stuff too.
Just bigger problems.
You just have to be ready for it. Right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so on that note, you're saying, prepared and such. Is there a thing that you do to be prepared, or is it just I'm going through the reps of life and it's making me prepared by default?
I think that the concern you have at this stage, early stage, and actually probably throughout any organization, is the inability to stop the entropy. And what I mean by that is things tend to unravel by nature, right? Tendency towards disorder is what entropy is for those scoring at home.
And nature is chaotic.
It's particularly easy for a young or small company like ours to experience that. And so what I try to do is go back to what are our strategies? What are we trying to do? And I try to keep those as simple as possible. What are we selling? What is it specifically? What is it we're selling? What is it that we want to go sell? How would we build a path to there? If that's the case, then who needs to work on that and kind of work back? Like, it just trying to be super logical and trying to, instead of boil the ocean, just bring it back down into something that we can all see. You eat the elephant one bite at a time. So let's define the elephant and then build that path. So I think that's something that we are constantly doing. Even the something like 3 years I've been with AiFi, we've had to do this multiple times. Stop, back up, let's do this again.
Hmm.
What are we trying to do? Where are we trying to go? One, because things change, but two, because it's just really easy to start rolling and missing, running by sort of stage gates or running by sort
Lack
key
of focus.
things. Yeah.
Can really bulldoze. So what I like what you said, Steve, is you're starting with the what, which is a little different than the start with why concept from Simon Sinek. But okay, so you have a clear why, but you're like, no, where's the elephant? I would define this as like, where's the elephant? Is that what we're doing? Or, what's the animal? Let's say, what's the animal? And then who's eating it? Who's eating it?
Yeah.
Maybe that's it. Probably not a vegetarian appropriate thing. What is, okay. We might see, this is why you need PR. You should not be saying this, Steve. What animal are we eating and who is the one eating it? Yeah, but I can say that. That's fine. Okay. So we're eating an elephant. Okay. And who's got the spoons? Okay.
All right. Who brought the spoons?
Who brought the spoons?
Yeah. But that is, fine. Simon Sinek, I don't think there's only one way to approach the broader issue here. The point I'm just trying to make is, the day-to-day can oftentimes obscure the long-term where you're trying to go. You miss the forest for the trees.
Yep.
And so how do you sort of get up every morning and go, okay, let's just take a couple minutes, get ourselves back to 30,000 feet, look over everything, go, okay, that's where we got to start.
So let me ask, for you, how do you do that? And then how do you do it for the team? Or is it the same answer?
Well, as you start to get bigger teams and you get people who manage people who manage people who manage people kind of thing, then you're right. You got to start taking a slightly different approach. The way I look at my role is not as the top of a pyramid, but as the trunk of a tree. And so the tree is what's got to grow. That they get the sunshine, which is, say, they bring in the sales, they bring the water to the leaves, which is like the product or the engineering or the accounting or whatever. Everybody else should be shining. My sole goal is just to support them. So I need to break down the barriers, but for them to know where they're going, which direction they're growing, and they need some guidance and some strategy. So you start there with, here's what we're trying to do. And given what we're trying to do, here's what we're going to go do. Here's the plan, right? We talk about this with your team a lot. Like, what are we trying to do by quarter? Given what we're trying to do, how should it manifest itself? Should it be interviews? Should it be events? Should it be blog posts? Should it be all these different things? And then let's use each one of these tools each quarter to either shift what we're trying to talk about or double down on what we're trying to talk about, et cetera, and knowing who we're trying to talk to. So whether it's that or any other function, you are constantly going back to, here's what we're trying to do, and given you're head of finance, here's what it means for you. And then given you're the head of marketing, here's what it means for you, right? So let's talk through how you are going to do that, knowing what the sales team is trying to do or knowing what the engineering team is going to bring you as a product. So I just think it's start first with what you're trying to do and then work it by group.
And tactically, is that every day when you're doing your stand-up with your team, every quarter, every month? Like, how often is this trickling around?
Well, again, because I've got leaders who I know well and trust, I don't have to do a stand-up with them every day and say, what are you doing? I say, there's the top of the hill, go get it. And you tell me when you need help. That's a little more than that, right? So weekly, we're having one-on-ones just to make certain, and in certain instances every day. But for the most part, it's I've got multiple plates spinning on stage. Now I've got to keep them all spinning. And so
Steve, look at you with all the illustrations. We have elephants, trunks, plates. We got all the visuals. It's helpful. It helps people understand. So you got lots of plates. Yeah.
So you got to keep them spinning. And the question is, you can't stand spinning one plate when all these others are starting to lose their spin. So you got to keep it going. And so I just, if my senior leadership team can't do that, then I've not got the right senior leader.
And then that means you got to get them out.
So I've got to do my talent bit, which is, is Beck really the CMO or not? And if they're not, then okay. But hopefully we've done a good job hiring. So that is.
How many people are you up to now at this point?
We're just shy of 120.
Okay. Yeah. Ooh. Okay. Yeah. Starting to not know all the names, maybe.
They're around the world, and so some of them have some very interesting names.
Good. Yep.
So sometimes it's not that I don't know the name; I just am scared to say it.
That's okay. You can
in case I.
You can ask and record it.
Yeah.
That's what I've done. Just be like, great, ask, record, boom, because everyone loves the sound of their name, of course.
Or you just say, hey there, guy. Hey there, fella.
But your name
I
is so
know.
important,
I'm kidding.
as you know. Steve, as we wrap up, any imparting words, anything that's like you wish to tell to potential founders who are perhaps maybe listening to this?
We've had some interesting conversations over the years about, if you're leading a startup organization, is your job harder than, say, Tim Cook's?
What's your
Eh,
answer?
I think we can first agree
I would
they're
say
different jobs, to be
very,
clear, right?
very.
They're different jobs. I think one of the disadvantages that we have as young companies that Apple does not have is this uncertainty around eventually you might run out of cash, right?
Yes.
Tim Cook is not waking up every morning
No.
going, I wonder
And
if I
him
need a
personally
fundraise,
is not, yeah, exactly.
or him personally,
Exactly.
right?
Yes, yes, exactly.
So we have, I think, levels of uncertainty that we have to deal with. And typically, just by the nature of who we are, the market may not have been formed yet. So you don't know how big the iPhone market is,
Yes.
and therefore what you can
exactly.
do again next
Exactly.
year,
Yep.
right? So you have to be a little bit understanding of that. And by the way, your board and your investors need to be understanding of that. Hopefully, they are true venture investors and understand that. But if they're not, then you need to start level setting with them and getting their expectations in line with the reality of it could be in 3 months we need to completely pivot.
Yep.
Or it could be in 3 months that we're not going to totally pivot, but we need to really reframe what we're doing.
Yeah.
And that's not something Apple has to do.
Mm-mm.
Now, I also don't have to worry about Wall Street simply by coming on this podcast.
Exactly.
Right.
You
so
don't.
That's the advantage that I might have over him.
One of my founder friends did say, and I still am like, this is so true. Like when we don't have time to get into it with boards, but like the role of your board is to ensure their only job that you are the right person to run this organization. That is it. That's their only role. We could debate that at some other time. But to your point about the board, like, do they understand? Hence, do they understand when you come to them and say, hey, you know what, in 3 months, yeah, we might be trashing this because we got to pivot here. That's what's up. But are you going to allow me to do that? You trust me to do it because I got to get this company to the next level.
Amen.
Well, Steve, thanks for being here today. Steve Carlin from AiFi. This was fun, right?
Yeah.
No guitar playing, but this is fun. I am going to do more of these, Steve. Thanks for the endorsement. Yes, yes. And for everyone who is listening, these are going on Tuesdays and Thursdays. They will be dropping. We're just going to have a fun time. We're going to see how these copies go. Maybe we'll actually do them live one time and have like, Steve, we could have like the biggest gathering of founders like drinking coffee. Okay, I got to think about this more. I got to think about it more. But
work on it. Get back to me.
I'm going to get where I come back to you. Okay. Thanks, Steve. Good seeing you.
Bye, Beck.
Have a good one.